back in 2015, a friend of mine in the industry told me that the beard craze was ending. This proved to be a grievous misreading of the market. You know, even if people go for a barbershop shave, they might get a bad shave, and they might not know why. But people who do what I do, people who shave for fun and pay a lot of attention to how their skin reacts to things, are not going to want to surrender that kind of control to a barber. Because most barbers don't, at least in the United States, most barbers don't do enough shaves to be particularly good at it.
So, hello, Will. How are you?
I'm okay, thanks. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good as well. Can you tell to me and to the people out there, like, who are you and what you do, a little bit more about your business?
Sure. All right, so my name is Will Carius. I founded Barrister and Man in 2013, and we make primarily men's shaving goods, specifically traditional shaving soap, aftershave splash, aftershave balm, bar soap, personal fragrances, etc.
Okay, that's great. And do you sell with Facebook ads? You sell basically e-commerce, direct to consumer, right?
Correct.
Okay. And can you tell me a little bit more about how this business actually got started?
So I have super sensitive skin and still have super sensitive skin. And shaving had always been a pretty miserable experience for me. And so I encountered traditional wet shaving on Reddit back in 2012 when the Reddit traditional wet shaving community was still very small. Now it's huge. It's probably 400, 500,000 people, which for a niche hobby on Reddit is big. And so it was very small at the time, and I got into it, and I was pretty bored with the scents that were being made by the various soap manufacturers at the time. And I was like, well, you know, a lot of these people were just people in their kitchens, and they were making shaving soap and selling it to enthusiasts. And I was like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. So I spent like 5 months teaching myself to make shaving soap. I needed money to pay for my living expenses for an unpaid legal internship that following summer. So I launched the company in March 2013. And within like 2 weeks, I couldn't keep up. I was making and shipping soap in between classes. I was in law school at the time. And I just couldn't keep up. I couldn't do it fast enough. And so my parents had been professional bakers when I was a kid. And I called them and I said, okay, I can't keep up. You guys still have a fair amount of equipment. Why don't we make a deal? And I will teach you how to make soap. You make it and ship it while I'm gone. And then I'll run the customer service, the marketing, all that stuff from San Francisco. And then we can go from there. And they're like, all right, yeah, that sounds cool. And it should be mentioned that I'm an only child. That's usually an important detail of this story. But so they agreed to do that, and my mother now co-owns the company with me. My father was very involved with it, even making soap for many years for the company until he passed away last December.
Okay, that's great. Did you actually finish law school, or you dropped out?
No, I finished law school, passed the bar, got my license. Don't practice.
That's great. And right now, do you work do you work full time in your business, or you have like also the law, or you practice law at all?
No, I don't practice law. I just do this full time.
Okay, that's great. And checking out the competitive landscape, because many direct to consumer businesses that they start, like they do a little bit of research before starting out to see like what is the competitive landscape. Like, did you do any of that, or you were just passionate about the product and you said, okay, I'm going to do it either way. I'm going to create a better product than the competition, and I'm going to basically beat them. What was the situation there?
There wasn't really a competitive landscape at the time. There were the big soap companies, mostly which came out of Europe, and then there were a few small American artisanal manufacturers which were popular, but to call it a competitive landscape is to kind of overstate the development of the market in that period. Like it, as I said, it was pretty much people who were in their kitchens making shaving soap and selling it, 25, 30, 50, 50 tins at a time. It didn't really exist as like a major consumer industry in the way that it is now. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, it still occupies an extremely small proportion of the shaving market, but it's far more developed than it was 10 years ago or 12 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's completely different. And the thing is with shaving soap, like I'm not sure about the industry overall. Like of course the riches are in the niches, but I want to understand a little bit more about. Have you right now, like because you were very early, and right now there is competition like the out there, like so what is the situation on that regard? Like do you think that the industry as a whole has developed? Like what is your thoughts around that?
I think the industry is basically split. Um, for a while, it was just the small artisans that were really pushing development. Performance is king in the shaving world. Basically, all other things fall to the side. When people shave for fun, they have very specific requirements. And so for a long time, it was mostly American manufacturers, mostly American artisans that were making small batches and really pushing the development of shaving soap technology, shaving soap formulation, performance, all of these things. And what eventually ended up happening was that the market got to be so glutted that people began to close up shop because they just couldn't compete because there was so much product available. And then COVID came and wiped out 60% of the market almost overnight. But what ended up happening was that even as early as 2018, the big companies began to get involved. Harry's was starting to get involved in wet shaving. Gillette decided to reissue double-edged razors. They began to reissue lathering shaving creams. There were a few other companies that existed during that time that are still around. Triumphant Disaster comes to mind. Cremo sort of exists on the fringes of the wet shaving market. It's a latherless cream, and it's very popular. You know, you can get it in Walmart or Target or wherever. But it's not really a true wet shaving product, but it is a much bigger company than we are now. I think it's owned by Unilever. Um, but yeah, so the market basically split into the people who really dedicated a lot of time and effort into pursuing the very best performance and the very best product that they possibly could, and then these big brands that rolled in with a ton of cash and kind of, if you excuse the expression, half-assed it, because they knew that no one was really going to hold their feet to the fire regarding performance or quality, and they made a mass market product that was cheap and did a reasonable job at best, and so they take up a lot of air in the room at the moment simply because they have most of the money.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The thing is that most people that they actually start like a business, in my circle at least, like especially if they don't have a knowledge around like e-commerce and how you advertise online, when they come up with a product, they feel like, okay, let me sell it to barbershops. So how come you actually deviate from that and you go straight to direct to consumer? Like what prompts you to do that?
Couple reasons. One, barbershops are almost completely disinterested in the product. It's too expensive. Um, Artisanal shaving soap, as a general rule, is too expensive. Our cheapest competitor is not carried by barbershops. They want something that's like Pro Rosso, and most artisanal shaving companies can't match Pro Rosso's pricing, and they put too much effort into performance and unusual fragrances. Pro Rosso's a great product, but it's very simple. And it's not really a product that I would say is geared toward an enthusiast. I mean, like the people who go to barbershops are generally not people who are going to consider shaving a hobby. Because most barbers don't, at least in the United States, most barbers don't do enough shaves to be particularly good at it. I've had a number of barber shaves over the years, and they have been uniformly terrible. Barbers just don't do what we do. They won't do an against the grain pass. They don't lather properly. It's just a mess. Like, why would I go and pay somebody 50, 60, 80, $100 to do something that they're clearly not comfortable doing? Where I can get a significantly better shave in my bathroom in the morning. And so it's just not the same market, really. Like, barbershops are not interested, and we're not really interested in selling to them because our customers aren't interested in buying from barbershops. So it's much more about the personal experience, and people would much rather do it themselves. And they have very personal preferences regarding fragrance, regarding brand, regarding performance, regarding particular ingredients. You know, there are a lot of people who are allergic to lanolin, and you walk into any classic Italian barbershop, and a lot of times the first thing they say to you is, "Well, do you want lanolin in your soap?" You know, so it's just a different kind of thing. You know, there are a variety of cultures that use lanolin specifically in their products. The Portuguese, the Italians, I think certain Greek creams use lanolin, and as much as 30% of the population has a dermal allergy to lanolin. So, you know, even if people go for a barbershop shave, they might get a bad shave, and they might not know why. But people who do what I do, people who shave for fun and pay a lot of attention to how their skin reacts to things, are not going to want to surrender that kind of control to a barber.
Yeah, that is something that I have noticed quite a lot. Like the best products and the best niches are not actually going to get founded by people doing research a market that they don't know of. Like it's going to be based on a personal product, like a personal experience, personal like insight into an industry that other people they simply don't know about that. For example, most of the people out there they are not aware like of the fact that there is a shaving ritual and people actually do it for fun. You did that, so you had this insight inside this industry and you found the problem and you basically solved it with your product. That's why I think that it's difficult for someone to replicate your product, and if they actually do, they are going to do basically a bad job because they don't have the insight that you do have. So right now that you look back at your insight and what you have, like I want to understand like what what do you think about the industry? Do you think that the trend of shaving is going to basically increase and in popularity, or do you see like a steady or a reduced in popularity? Like, what is the situation there? Because I'm not aware. I know that people sometimes tend to leave beard or tend to shave. It depends on basically what the trends are.
So, back in 2015, a friend of mine in the industry told me that the beard craze was ending. This proved to be a grievous misreading of the market.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think the wet shaving world is going to increase in breadth and reach to any significant degree. I mean, like, there are always going to be people who are attracted to this kind of ritual, or who have skin problems, especially men of color have problems with shaving. But by and large, a lot of people either can't be bothered shaving, or they look better with beards, or they have ideas about how masculine it makes them to shave or not shave. So you have a lot of factors acting against you. And the industry as a whole has a lot of factors acting against it. So, um, like I said, there will always be people who shave who are attracted to this ritual, and come to the wet shaving market and, appreciate it for what it is. But in terms of like a mass product, mass appeal product, that's just never going to happen. Even if people shave, they can't be bothered getting up the extra 30 seconds in the morning to lather up a shaving soap, and take a and shave after a shower, and do all of that. There's a whole process involved. Most people just can't be bothered. They'd rather get a passably okay shave with passably okay products, and put less thought and effort into it. It's simply not something that most people can be bothered putting a lot of thought or attention or effort into. So I don't think it's going to expand any further. I think it is likely contracting in many ways. During the pandemic, we actually saw a significant uptick in interest, because guys were bored. They were stuck at home. and they were bored, and so they were interested in personal care, which is part of the the fragrance renaissance and various other things. It triggered all of that, and so we saw an uptick in that. But about the time the pandemic really began to burn out, um, we didn't see any additional increase. Like the trend has not endured, and it's currently our revenue is increasing pretty steadily, but our number of new customers is basically plateaued.
Yeah, yeah, understand. And you're selling just in US, right?
No, we have distribution in Europe. Um, every so often, I'll get an email from one of my Asian retailers, and they'll place an order. We have distribution in Australia. We have distribution in Canada. So no, we have sales all over the world.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the thing with the shaving trend, which is like this, people misread a lot of things, like especially when you actually like want to predict the future, like people are very bad at doing that. Because if you actually check the past and see like what has happened in the previous years, you might say, okay, this is what is going to be the trend going forward. So, like to give you an example, so you can understand what I'm trying to say. Like in the 60s, 70s, like the hippies and all that, like they brought the beard back. So basically, there was a lot of people that actually had beard. But 80s to 90s, the style was like saved and clean and saved, like it was baked in that era. But after that, like especially in 2010, with all the hipsters and the lumberjack movement in fashion, like people actually like went back to the beard. And you might say, okay, yeah, it's going to last up to a decade, and then we're going to get back to the trend where it's saved. Where I have noticed that because I had this expectation myself as well, like I was thinking about that because I knew that this was a trend, and I was thinking, okay, yeah, this is going to be old fashioned if you check 10 years from now. But this is not the case right now. Like the not saved look has been normalized to a point where it's normal. Do you think that it's going to change, or do you think that this is here to stay and this is what we have to deal with?
I think there's a crisis of masculinity worldwide, and whether that's important or not overall is kind of to be determined. But many men equate having a beard with their masculine identity and with manliness. And so because they're wearing proof of their manliness and their testosterone on their faces, right? Like everyone can see. Um and so I think for as long as that endures, beards will remain very popular. I think there's also a lot of guys just can't be bothered. A lot of guys are just not interested, or they'd rather trim it like once a week or once a month. I mean, like you wear a beard. How frequently do you trim your beard?
When I get a haircut.
Yeah. So how frequently do you get your hair cut? Like once a month? Once every 2 weeks?
Every 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. So that's once every 2 to 3 weeks as opposed to shaving every day. So now there are people like me who can't grow a beard, and that you know in the popular lexicon and the popular zeitgeist, that means that I'm less manly, which it doesn't. But that's the perception, and so because beards have become so tightly associated with masculinity, on one side of the equation, and for the other side of the equation, guys just can't be bothered. They just can't be bothered shaving every day. I think for as long, unless there's some massive external force, I don't think that the beard thing is going to go away for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and there are so many brands that they would like big, really big multinational brands like Gillette, for example. They are trying so hard to bring back this era of people getting shaved, but I don't feel it's working, at least for now, maybe in the future. So I just want to understand, since you are not seeing that trend, of course, when you are going to see it, like it's going to be obvious from the sales numbers that you are going to get, but I want to understand, like, how do you plan to actually scale? Um, do you want to work with on other products? Like, what is your plan for your company?
So the wet shaving industry is not going to scale. Period. Full stop. It's just not. Gillette has tried it, Harry's has tried it, Schick has tried it. No one is going to make it work. The largest wet shaving market in the world is in India, and India is an intensely price conscious market. That said, the hobby as a whole is, as I said, our number of customers is not necessarily increasing, but there is a turnover in our customers, right? Where people either drop out because they decide that they find something that they like better, or they start growing a beard, or many of our customers are older, so in some cases they die. But there is turnover, and so we have new customers coming in, and some of our more established customers going out, and that just happens. Like that's how a market works. But um, overall, the wet shaving market's just not going to scale. There's always going to be like a certain proportion of the population that's willing to do this and willing to experiment with this and is interested in this, and the rest of the population is either not interested or can't afford it or whatever. Um, so yeah, in order to scale, we kind of had to find a different way. And in terms of scalability, like everything that we make is made in house. That significantly impacts your scalability. Like I make everything by hand. Um, that's hard. That's really hard. And the reason for that is that unless you have large amounts of venture capital, and good luck getting venture capital when you try to pitch that you're selling to a group of people who shave for fun. Unless you have large amounts of venture capital, you cannot go to a commercial soap house or a commercial cosmetics house and commission specialized work like this. Making shaving soap is an extremely precise, extremely specialized operation. I've gone to a number of commercial shaving houses, commercial soap houses, and they come back to me with minimum order quantities of anywhere from 25 to 50,000 pieces. Even at $3 a piece, which was what I estimated 10 years ago, I have 11 fragrances. Like that's almost $1 million in just product, not counting packaging, not counting fragrance, not counting labeling, like not counting all of these things. And you can't bootstrap that kind of money. You just can't unless you already have some kind of connection. And I don't. I grew up a poor kid in upstate New York. Like it just doesn't exist. That architecture does not exist. So instead, you have to find things that are more familiar to the public. And so we started making bar soap during the pandemic, largely because I wasn't sure that people were still going to be buying shaving soap. As I said, it proved to actually be a boon to us because people were stuck at home and were looking at their faces and rubbing their faces all day. But so we started making bath soap, but the bath soap market is incredibly flush with options too. Like there are tons and tons and tons of artisanal bath soap companies out there. Dr. Squatch was just sold to, I think it was Unilever. The black stuff out of Ireland has the natural market. There are probably 500 to 1,000 such manufacturers, and not more. I mean, like everybody who goes to a farmer's market can see somebody who makes soap, makes cold process or hot process soap or whatnot. So soap is kind of a dead end too. And while we move a lot of bar soap, we sell a lot of bar soap. I don't think it's a scalable option. So we're kind of left with something else, and we haven't entirely figured out what that something else is yet. I'm looking very much into the deodorant market, which again, very busy, very loud market, but there is room for innovation in the deodorant market in ways that I think don't exist in the shaving soap and bar soap markets anymore. The shaving soap market has largely reached this sort of singularity point where we can't really improve the performance of the soap beyond like very minimal incremental improvements. but the deodorant market still has quite a lot of play left in it because nobody's really perfected deodorant yet. We perfected shaving soap. Like the market as a whole perfected shaving soap. Now, the shaving industry put shaving soap down for 70 years, and we had to pick it back up and catch up very rapidly, and so it ended up being an arms race between all of us. But nobody's really perfected the deodorant market yet. You have the commercial deodorants, which are made with aluminum salts, and even if you don't believe that, even if you set aside the weird pseudoscience and conspiracy theories that aluminum causes Alzheimer's disease or breast cancer or whatnot, they can. I mean, like these materials are just irritating. Like they irritate your skin. I can't use regular deodorants. They irritate the heck out of my skin. It gets very itchy, very dry. I don't like it. And I have the same problem with deodorants that are made with baking soda, which also irritates the skin for a lot of people. Or you have products that have arrowroot and various other things in them that don't really work. Or you have products like what's made by Lumi slash Mando, which they use malic. I think it's malic acid, mandelic acid. Sorry, they use mandelic acid, and mandelic acid works okay. But a lot of my problem with mandelic acid is that it stinks. It just smells horrendous. Um, and so you're kind of left with various other possibilities. We sell a product at the moment made by a company in Canada called Super Deodorant that uses micronized silver, and it is without question the most effective deodorant I've ever used. But there are problems with it. It's unstable. They don't use preservatives of any kind. They don't use emulsifiers. They're very committed to this like extremely minimal mindset, to the point often to their detriment, I think, and they're actually discontinuing the product that we're selling in favor of something new that they claim is better. But I have yet to actually use this stuff, so I don't know whether their new product is better or not. But I will say that their innovation of using micronized silver is the most effective deodorant I've found. But they have by no means perfected that formula either. So, but I do think that the deodorant market has a lot of play and possibility as a scalable market. And then fragrance has always been a big part of what we do, and there will always be play and possibility and scalability in the fragrance market for as long as people wear fragrance. And fragrance is seeing kind of a renaissance. Gen Z is very into fragrance. Um, I think largely as a result of the pandemic, when the fragrance world saw kind of an uptick in sales and interest, and so there's been a lot of renewal in artisanal fragrance and niche fragrance. Brands like Imaginary Authors, Zoologist, Francesca Bianchi, Ormond Jane. Like you see these companies that are started basically from nothing, and they hit massive success. And it's frequently on the back of like one or two really popular fragrances. Le Labo was like that. Santal 33 made Le Labo what it is. Without that fragrance, it probably would have just died as another lost perfume company. So
Yeah, yeah. Look, for the soap and the deodorant space, like I have seen that Dollar Shave Club actually went that route with the deodorant, basically because their sales have been they have been like stalled for like since 2023, like they haven't actually increased a lot. So this is one of the things that they actually did. I don't know if it actually worked. It doesn't actually seem that it is working pretty well, at least for now. But it's something that I definitely think that it has legs. Another thing that I would like to point out is that when you have a product, like people, many times people actually say that it's all marketing. So basically, you can convince someone to buy a product, and that is sort of true. If you're in a niche, like for example in the fragrance space, like that everyone is buying, like but they want a reason to buy, yes, marketing is everything. But if you are in a niche that is actually like pretty difficult, like people that are buying this product are very very specific, there is not many tricks, of course there are, but there is not a ton of tricks that you can do that is going to convince them to saving like every day, and use this product like and change their habits completely. So that's what I feel about the market. Like it's a difficult market to be in if you want to scale. Like what's your thoughts on that?
I would agree with that tremendously. I mean, like I've always said that you have to try our product to know that I'm right. Like you have to take the plunge for me to prove to you that I'm right. And a lot of people won't do that because they're like, "Well, what's wrong with how I shave now?" And you tell them, "Well, your shave can be so much better." And they're like, "I don't believe you." And you're like, "Well, I can, you can try it." And then, a lot, like I said, a lot of people can't be bothered with the proper ritual and the proper preparation. And so yeah, I do think that there are real problems. There's sort of a general, I don't want, a general pushback against the idea that shaving can be anything less than miserable. And I always say to people, like, Gillette and Schick made shaving suck 50 years ago, and they haven't bothered to correct their mistake yet because the patents on their safety razors were expiring, and they were looking for something new, something more profitable. And so they developed the Track 2, which was the first cartridge razor and proved to be enormously popular and enormously effective and enormously marketable. And so given that and the simultaneous success of products like Barbasol, which was very convenient and very easy to use, that was the direction that the market went in. And they sold on convenience. They didn't sell on the quality of the experience. They sold on convenience. And in the case of things like Barbasol, and even for its early years, even in the case of things like cartridge razors, they sold on cost. Oh, well, it's not that much more expensive than using a safety razor. Of course, now there are entire generations of people that have never used safety razors. They don't know how much more expensive this is. They just complain that this is really, really expensive. And that it is. I mean, like, they captured the market and then they cranked the prices through the ceiling. Like, why is a cartridge $4? That's just absurd. It's like 30 cents in plastic. A double-edged razor blade is 10 cents. You can get a decent double-edged razor made in Germany for $35. If you really want to upscale, you can go buy a Henson. They're made out of milled aluminum. They're about $70. A lot of people love them. They sell tons of them. We sell them. Or if you're more interested in that kind of cartridgey experience, there's a company called Proof out of Montana. We carry Proof razors. And they use half double-edged blades where you split the blade, or you can buy what's called a barber blade, which is basically a half double-edged blade. And they hold it in place in magnets, and it's a pivoting head, and it's a very comfortable shave. I love my Proof razor. So it's just a matter of pushback in general, like you said, and it's hard to convince people that this is better when they either don't see the problem with what they're doing now, or they see the price tag and they immediately balk.
Yeah, for sure. It's very, very difficult to change habits to people. Like, it's much easier to find a product that actually is already trending and basically build the product around that than change people's behavior. Like Dollar Shave Club, for example, it wasn't that they've made people shave more. It wasn't like their main angle. Their main angle was like, Gillette is too expensive. Try and buy from us. It's going to be much cheaper. And actually, these actually resonate with people. But changing habits, it's something that only really big companies can do. Like Colgate, like they did in the 60s, and they made everyone brush their teeth. Like, it is not possible to do with a small brand. Yeah. So what? As we wrapping up this episode, I want you to tell me, like, what are the any opportunities you see, like in the space that you are, or in other space that you have explored, that you see that for a business or specifically for an e-commerce brand to actually flourish. Like, are there any specific products that you have found that you say, okay, if I create an online store for that product, it would sell a lot? Like, have you seen any of those opportunities out there?
No. No. I found. I mean, like I said, I talked about the deodorant that we sell that's made in Canada, and don't get me wrong, they sell a ton of product. Like they sell way more product than we do. But I think the problem with a product like that is that they're so committed to this minimalist mindset that they kneecap the appeal of the product because it's unstable. And so it can't be a mass market product because they can't keep it from going rancid in 6 months. And they're supposedly working for a way around that. We're working up a way around that. Like I said, I've yet to actually see what they've done. But overall, no, I mean, like, blue ocean strategy kind of dictates that you find the problem that no one else has solved, and then you fix it for cheap, or you fix it better than anybody else does, and you take over the market, and then you scale from there. I think that the deodorant market is sort of the last frontier in personal grooming. I think trying to change the shaving market is just too hard. The hair market, I mean, like there are tens of thousands of companies that do hair stuff to varying degrees of success. Again, skincare, same thing. Acne care, moisturization, anti-aging, all of these things. Unless somebody really finds something remarkable, revolutionary, which I mean could happen. We're in the most advanced scientific state that we've ever been as a species and as a society, and people are discovering new things all the time. Finally we have a drug that makes people lose weight that doesn't cause them to cause them extreme side effects, or isn't extremely dangerous. But barring a development like that in the personal care industry, no, I haven't seen anything like that. I think for the most part, anything that you encounter is just going to be repackaging of someone else's idea. And like Supply Razor is like this. And I'm not picking on them at all, but they went on Shark Tank, and they pitched to Shark Tank, and then they walked away, and the sharks made them an offer, and they told them, no, we're not interested, because I think the day after their episode premiered, they sold out their entire stock, and they've continued to sell extremely well ever since. But at the end of the day, the Supply Razor is not a revolutionary product. It's very similar to a Schick injector razor. It's the same principle. It can use Schick injector blades, and it's just kind of in a prettier package. So it's not really an innovation in the way that like a cartridge razor in general was an innovation. It's repackaging of an old idea into something new and giving it kind of a facelift to make it look more modern and more sleek and more interesting and more high tech. The leaf razor is the same thing. I mean, like a lot of these Kickstarter funded razors are very much like this. It's just sort of the issue that you see with personal care in general. I don't really think that there's a whole lot else to be done without some massive technological advancement.
Yeah, I understand that it's something that, of course, you can grow a business in this space, but it's going to be harder than growing it in another space that's actually flourishing right now. And who knows, maybe in 2 to 3 years, something is going to change, and we are going to have like an era of 1980s, 1990s, where like everyone was clean saved, and it was like amazing for the companies that they were selling to those people. This is how like Gillette like grew a lot in this era. So yes, thank you very much, Will, for your time. Any closing remarks that you would like to say before closing?
Shaving doesn't have to be terrible, and if you have a hard time shaving, you should send me an email.
Okay, maybe I will. I will tell you, because I never do. Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.